Hey all, welcome to MojoPlays, and today we're gonna dig up some of those deeply rooted childhood memories. I'm talking about all those times we went face to face with a legendary Pokemon and weren't able to catch the thing. Share your trauma in the comments. For this list, the difficulty of these Pokemon encounters will be in no set order, as a large number of them are up to random chance. Though you may be surprised just how many of them are designed to have anti-catch strategies, be that healing, running away, or some other dastardly evasion trick. The only criteria is that they have to be catchable in the wild, so we're not including all those traditionally event-only Pokemon like Mew or Victini, who were given away near a game's launch and then never again. Feebas. Feebas is a Pokemon that probably best exemplifies the power of friendship. In several games, its encounter rate is just 1%. However, in its original appearance, it can only spawn in 6 random tiles on Route 119. Not all of these water tiles are accessible either, so the odds may be even lower. Imagine trying to fill out your decks when a simple fish has a 0.009% encounter rate. Nowadays, there are better yet still slim chances of locating one, and getting it to go in the ball has never been that hard either. Tapu Fini. The several island guardians within Sun and Moon are tricky to catch like any legendary lineup, but Fini has a uniquely annoying ability to regenerate health every single turn, along with a decently high defense stat. While it can always be found in a set location, you're going to want to bring tons of Pokeballs if you want to stand a chance at beating the 3% catch odds. Once you begin battle with Tapu Fini, it will quickly set up Aqua Ring and its signature ability Misty Terrain. This combo will not only restore its health, but will also prevent any status conditions like sleep or paralysis on the Pokemon. All that said, while it's tempting to unleash your Master Ball on her, there is a trick. Pokemon that have the rare Heal Block ability can counter Aqua Ring, or if you're able to inflict a burn right away, it will negate the healing done. Giratina. Giratina has that, surprise surprise, legendary 3% catch rate, and with his devilishly awesome looking forms, he's a prime contender for that Master Ball. That said, if you're the kind of player who likes to match the type of Pokeball to the Mon's design, thus you'd like to have a Dusk Ball Giratina, you're going to have to contend with some unique difficulties. Mainly that Giratina is a legendary Ghost type, and that means you won't be able to use the reliable catching tool of False Swipe. Whereas on every other Pokemon, False Swipe would deal normal damage and bring them down to 1 HP while never KOing them, on Giratina it has no effect at all, and you waste your turn. This battle will be a long haul where high defense Pokemon are required, since Giratina can raise each of its stats with Ancient Power and Ominous Wind. The rest is up to RNG luck. Abra. We couldn't have a hardest to catch list without the notorious Abra. Abra is a uniquely designed Pokemon always coded to flee on its first turn by using the move Teleport. Basically, if you don't yeet a Pokeball the second you encounter one, it's 100% disappearing. I can't imagine what would happen if it was a shiny Abra. Being that Pokemon at full health have a lower chance to be caught, this will always hurt your odds, but at least there are options like the Quick Ball or special abilities that can help you out on turn 1. Munchlax. Munchlax. Catching a Munchlax in Pokemon Diamond was a little bit like finding a needle in a haystack if you had to wait 6 hours between checking the haystack. Munchlax in this version could only be found in Munchlax trees. Problem is, there's only 4 trees coded as being Munchlax trees, and they are determined at the start of your save file without telling you. This means there's no reliable way to find them, and to attract a Munchlax, you'll have to use honey on the trees, then wait real-world hours to see if one has appeared. The entire task is probably the most tedious thing in the game, and it's going to be different for everyone depending on how your game's numbers are generated. Chansey. Remember how I said legendaries usually have a 3% catch rate? Well, that's been true for years, but what may surprise you is just how legendary Chansey herself used to seem. In the Gen 1 games, it could be found in the Safari Zone with a shockingly low 1% chance to appear. Do keep in mind that Safari Zones also limit your time in them, kicking you out after 500 steps or so. That, and because you must use your limited Safari Balls here, and you'll only catch Chansey roughly 4% or so of the time, actually having this thing in your party was almost unthinkable. Most players have never caught her this way. Hitting up the late game unknown dungeon is the only other option for better odds. I guess it wasn't called Chansey for no reason. Latios and Latias. Latios and Latias will always run as soon as they get the chance. Your Pokemon is able to track them after a first encounter, but trying to speed up the process by flying to that location yourself will likely have them change spots on you. You'll need repels to get to the spot you actually want to start hunting. Once you get lucky, you may find some catching tricks may not always work on them, like how Latios and Latias aren't affected by Arena Trap, which would usually stop grounded opponents from fleeing. At least there's always Mean Look, provided your Mean Looker doesn't get KO'd from their powerful psychic attacks. Lugia. No question about it, Lugia is a recovery enjoyer. The awesome-looking dragon can reliably damage you with Hydro Pump and Gust, and whenever you get a bit too much damage on it, Lugia will recover back to full or near full. There really isn't any secret tricks to him, but you do have to pay some mind that Lugia exerts pressure, meaning every time you do an attack, it's actually costing you more PP than normal, and you may get stalled out to the point where you'll have to switch off your best attacker. Likewise, once it uses up all its recovery PP, it'll start to struggle, and start the countdown towards a fainted legendary as it damages itself. The 3% catch rate means you'll definitely want to afflict them with something to up your odds. Rayquaza. I think most people would agree that Rayquaza is one of the many coolest looking Pokemon, but what isn't cool is its ability to stall a battle and give you a heart attack when trying to catch the thing. The Dragon-type legendary will use Rest to put itself to sleep, heal, and give you a small window to begin setting up whatever you want, only to awake and use its move Outrage, which will deal massive damage for 3 turns and begin to damage itself afterwards in confusion. The rollercoaster of low catch rate, healing, and self-damaging makes Rayquaza yet again a prime candidate for that Master Ball collecting dust. Virizion. Virizion is part of the Swords of Justice with an oddly offensive moveset. It's not uncommon for it to use both Swords Dance and Sacred Sword one after the other to sharply raise its attack. Then what would an annoying boss be if it didn't also heal itself? Being a grass type, it has access to a supreme self-heal and damaging attack in the form of Giga Drain. There's really no special tactic here, putting it to sleep is probably the best option, but the rest, as always, is left to luck. Galarian Articuno. The Galarian variant of Articuno is without a doubt the trickiest of the returning legendary birds, being that it has a unique, first-time ever mechanic for how it appears in the wild. This Articuno will create clones of itself that circle a small area. The player must simply pick one of the clones they believe is the real one, and if it isn't, the bird flees and can be found somewhere entirely different on the island. There isn't much strategy here, and some have reported guessing the wrong clone too many times, to the point where they cannot find it anymore. One trick is to rewind the clock and date on your Nintendo Switch system so that it hopefully appears where you first saw it, but depending on if you've saved or moved around, this may or may not work. Once you do pick the right clone, you still have to do the same legendary 3% catch rate too. Mewtwo. Here he is, the Mew, the myth, the legend. Mewtwo is often a final boss level catch throughout the series, though he will pretty much always be found in a set area, that way chasing is not required. Mewtwo has always had a high special attack stat and powerful pure psychic type moves. Plus, at a whopping level 70 in Pokemon Red and Blue, and with only one weakness at the time being Bug of all things, this secret final boss was incredibly busted. While he's been surpassed in terms of difficulty and catchability since then, the man-made creature has a place in all of our hearts for his final boss kind of attitude and prestige. Ho-Oh. Remember when I said Lugia was a recovery enjoyer? Well, Ho-Oh is a fanatic. Ho-Oh is yet another legendary who threatens to faint itself by spamming low PP moves, two of which being Recover and Sunny Day. Ho-Oh will consistently set up Sunny Day to deliver big damage on a Sacred Flame attack, and anytime it's not doing that, you can expect it to be recovering. Sometimes it'll repeatedly alternate between Sunny Day and Recover pointlessly, using up the PP of both of those moves and stalling out the PP of your own attacks. One thing is for sure, you don't want anything weak to fire around this bird because it's going to be doing 50% more fire damage at all times thanks to the environmental effect. No sleep powder for this guy. Mesprit. Mesprit seems like a deceptively easy catch, being that its two companions, Yuxi and Asleaf, can be found in set locations. However, once reaching Mesprit, the game will state that it is taken off without too much of a hint if you're able to find them again. You can track it with your gear, and Mesprit will now continually move from spot to spot. Wouldn't you know it, the next time you run into it, Mesprit has a habit of fleeing. And with well-rounded stats, even if you manage to paralyze it for a few turns, it may take off shortly after. The Regi. You know the deal by now, each and every Regi form has an extremely low catch rate, and they can be tricky bosses if you don't bring their specific weaknesses. Regigigas is probably the toughest, being that this final form requires that you catch his other guys first, and his stats are beefy. But each time you find one, you'll have to keep an eye on how many times the Regi has used its moves. Regirock, for instance, uses superpower to lower its own defense, and with only 5 PP to its moves, it's going to start to use Struggle real quick, threatening to faint itself before you can even catch it. Enamorus. Enamorus is a quite demanding boss in Legends Arceus, having you first catch Thundurus, Tornadus, and Landorus before getting a crack at the Fairy-type boss, which will play more like a Souls-like than a traditional Pokemon game. First, you'll have to break her many shields by throwing an item at it each time. Meanwhile, as you try to traverse the swamp she's found in, she'll shoot out these tornadoes, which will make you dizzy, reverse your controls, and give her an easy getaway. Once you do start the actual battle, it'll be a test of reactions and timing as you whittle down its health slowly but surely. Manaphy. Manaphy has always been a tricky one to acquire. Once upon a time you had to purchase an entirely separate spin-off game to get one, so when it appeared in Legends Arceus, players could thankfully get it without a paywall. Instead, a complicated riddle awaits you, boiling down to needing a certain team of Pokémon at a certain place at a certain time. Once all the conditions are met, Manaphy finally appears in its secret location, where you'll get a chance to catch it along with a few of its minions. Hopefully you've brought or made enough Pokeballs to catch them all. Deoxys. Deoxys is one of those event Pokemon, you know, the ones who was only available years ago for 2 seconds in Japan, but when it actually became available to catch in Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, it was probably one of the hardest gauntlets Pokemon had to offer. Players must first face and likely try to catch Rayquaza, only to find themselves in a long cutscene and boss battle with the trainer Zinnia. After taking on her 5 powerful mons, only then do you get a shot at the alien. With no saves in between and the ability for either of the legendaries to break out or struggle faint themselves to death, this is quite a tall order to pull off on your first try. Entei, Raikou, and Suicune. The 3 legendary beasts share a category of their own because unlike a lot of legendaries, every single one of them have no set location. Remember how Mesprit wandered around in the Lake Trio? That is actually preferable compared to these 3. They are notoriously difficult to find, being that each is coded to move to an adjacent route every time the player enters a route or opens a door. They will all flee unless put to sleep on turn 1. Problem is, of course, Raikou is an electric type, so good golly luck trying to outspeed him. Most people recommend that oh so reliable Master Ball. Arceus. The god of all Pokemon has an intensely difficult battle in Legends Arceus as a post-game optional boss, one that requires you to have caught all other mons. That is a huge lift, especially considering you'll have to get through the prior mentioned legendaries to get here. Arceus has the most attacks out of any of the noble Pokemon boss battles, so you're really going to have to get that gamer lean-in maneuver ready, you know the one. It'll often shoot out energy rings that'll quickly deplete the player's health, and it'll use a golden laser which builds up and tracks the player. These laser blasts are so quick you won't have a chance to hit the boss with the bombs, and timing windows will only occasionally appear between its many phases. Once down to 50% health, it has one last trick, to split apart into clones which will take 4 hits each to destroy, like the prior mentioned Enamorus shields. Truly, it's like fighting all the prior tricky bosses at once, but in the very least, we can be thankful Arceus doesn't run away and hide from you or something. That would be a Pokestep too far. And that's all from me. What did you think? What was your hardest Pokemon catch ever of all time? Tell me the epic saga in the comments and leave a like and leave a subscribe too. Thanks very much. Have a good day.